Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going underground, literally. We're talking pipeline safety, but not just about the pipes themselves, like the steel and the welds. We're diving into the human side of it all, especially when it comes to those upstream oil and gas pipelines, the ones that carry crude oil and natural gas from the wellhead.
Right. Those pipelines definitely have their own unique challenges. It's not just about the physical strength of the pipes, it's about the whole system.
Exactly. And we've got some really interesting sources to dig into today. There's this podcast episode we found called Pipeline Risk Management. And then there's this briefing document that kind of summarizes the key points. They both draw from this book called Nightmare Pipe. Interesting when you dive into the content. It's all about these what they call black swan events, those massive pipeline incidents that everyone thinks will never happen. But when they do,
the consequences can be catastrophic. And what's really disturbing is that the book argues that most of these major incidents aren't just random accidents.
like a freak storm or something, right?
Right. They often stem from a whole pattern of failures within the organization that runs the pipeline. Like, in one of the sources, they mention a recent case where a major pipeline failed, and get this, no individual was held responsible. They basically said it was a systemic failure of the whole organization.
Wow, that's kind of scary. And so it's not just about one person messing up. It's like a whole chain of, oversights or something.
Exactly. And that's why we need to shift our thinking from just reacting to incidents to, proactively preventing them.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But it makes me think, if these big incidents are often tied to organizational problems, what kind of information are we even collecting about pipeline safety? It seems like a lot of the focus is on leak reports, or if a pipeline gets hit by a backhoe or something.
Yeah, those are definitely important things to track. But you're right, that's typically what gets measured. We call those lagging indicators. Think of it like driving a car using only your rearview mirror.
Oh, I see what you mean. You can see what's already happened, but it doesn't really help you avoid what's coming up ahead.
Exactly. So you're looking at what went wrong, but not necessarily what might go wrong in the future.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're tracking all this data, why are these major incidents still happening? What are we missing?
Well, what we're missing are what we call leading indicators. It's all about proactive measures, focusing on human behavior, organizational practices, the things that can actually predict potential problems before they become huge incidents.
Okay, leading indicators. Now that sounds a lot more promising. Tell me more about that. What kind of data are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Sure. So think about the day-to-day stuff happening on a pipeline. Do workers actually have the right procedures for each task, especially for the more complex stuff like preventing corrosion?
Right, because I guess even having a state-of-the-art pipeline doesn't mean much if the people working on it don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. And are those procedures even updated? Can people easily find them when they need them?
Yeah, because what good is a procedure if it's buried in a filing cabinet somewhere?
Right. And it goes beyond just procedures, too. Think about the training people get. Are they actually learning what they need to know? Can they perform under pressure if something unexpected happens?
Right, because when things go wrong on a pipeline, I bet it can get pretty stressful.
Absolutely. And another big one is communication. Can you believe one of our sources talks about a pipeline explosion that happened because one team didn't even know what another team was doing, a complete communication breakdown? Obviously, that had pretty devastating consequences.
Wow, that's terrifying. So we're not just talking about ticking boxes here. We're talking about making sure people have the knowledge, the skills, and the ability to actually communicate with each other to prevent these kinds of things from happening.
Yeah.
It seems almost too simple, but I can see how those things could easily get overlooked in, the day-to-day chaos.
That's exactly it. A lot of these black swan events, they're not caused by one big, obvious mistake. It's usually a bunch of small oversights or missteps that, when you put them all together, create the perfect conditions for a major incident. And here's the thing, when we start looking at these leading indicators, we're not just talking about, making things safer. It actually makes good business sense, too.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it this way. If you can show that investing in better training, or having clear procedures that are easy to find, or improving communication, if you can show that those things actually reduce the risk of a major incident,
companies would be more likely to put money into it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about safety anymore. It's about protecting their profits, the environment, their reputation, all that.
I see what you mean. So it's like a win-win. Okay, so let's say we're collecting all this data on human factors, these leading indicators.
Yeah.
What do we actually do with it? How do we turn it into action?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This data can be used to create, like, dashboards, visual snapshots of how the whole pipeline operation is doing from a safety perspective.
So instead of just having stacks of reports, we can actually see patterns and trends in real time.
Exactly. Imagine being able to see at a glance how effective your training programs are, or which procedures are causing the most confusion, that kind of thing.
That's a really cool idea. So you can actually see where the potential problems might be before they turn into something major.
Right. And here's the real aha moment. By incorporating this human factors data into risk models, we can actually start to predict potential problems, like before they even happen.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. It's like having an early warning system for pipeline safety, especially for those upstream oil and gas pipelines.
Exactly. You might think this is all super cutting edge, but there's an industry that's actually been doing this for decades. And they have an incredible safety record.
You're talking about airlines, right?
You got it. Think about it. Flying used to be pretty risky, but now it's statistically one of the safest ways to travel.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So how did they do it? What's their secret?
A lot of it has to do with what they call safety management systems, or SMS for short.
SMS. Got it. So what's so special about these SMS systems? What makes them work so well?
Well, a big part of it is they're constantly gathering data. And not just about incidents that have already happened. They're looking at near misses, everyday observations, anything that might be a sign of a potential problem.
So they're not just waiting for something bad to happen. They're actively looking for any signs of trouble.
Right. And then they analyze all that data to find patterns, figure out the risks, and make changes before accidents happen.
It's like they're always learning and adapting, always trying to stay one step ahead.
Exactly. And the good news is that the pipeline industry is starting to adopt these SMS approaches too.
That's great. But it sounds like if we really want to achieve the same level of safety as the airlines, we need to put even more focus on the human side of things.
Couldn't agree more. We can't just focus on the metal in the ground. We have to understand the people who design, build, operate, and maintain these systems. That's what this deep dive is all about. It's not just about stronger steel or fancier sensors. It's about creating a culture of awareness, where people are communicating and they're always looking for ways to improve.
So it's about recognizing that even the most high-tech pipeline in the world is only as safe as the people running it.
You got it. And one of the biggest challenges for these upstream oil and gas pipelines is corrosion.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Those pipelines operate in some pretty harsh environments, right? Like extreme temperatures, high pressures, all kinds of stuff that could cause corrosion.
Absolutely. Corrosion is a constant battle in this industry, and it's especially tough in those upstream environments.
So how do we even begin to tackle something like that? It seems like a pretty daunting challenge.
It is, but it's not impossible. The key is to have a multi-pronged approach. And it all starts with, understanding the specific types of corrosion risks that you're facing.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are the main types of corrosion that we need to worry about with these upstream pipelines?
Well, there are two main categories. You've got internal corrosion and external corrosion. Internal corrosion, that happens from the inside out. It's often caused by water or corrosive gases that are present in the oil or gas itself.
Okay, so it's like the stuff that's being transported through the pipeline is actually eating away at it from the inside.
Right. And that's where the human element comes back into play. We need skilled technicians who can monitor these systems, spot any problems, and keep everything running smoothly.
So even with all this amazing technology, we still need people to make sure it's all working right.
Absolutely. And that's why building a culture of safety is so important. You want everyone to understand just how crucial corrosion prevention is. And they need to feel comfortable reporting any potential issues, even if they seem small.
Because when it comes to corrosion, it's all about catching it early.
Exactly. It's all about preventing those small issues from turning into huge problems. And that takes vigilance, proactive maintenance, and, being willing to adapt to changing conditions.
So managing corrosion in these upstream pipelines is a constant challenge.
It definitely is, but it's a challenge that we have to address. I mean, these pipelines are essential to our energy system, so we have to do everything we can to keep them safe and reliable.
Well said. It's not just about the technology, it's about the people, the processes, and the culture. It's about looking at corrosion management from every angle and understanding that it's a constant battle that we need to be fighting.
You summed it up perfectly. And it's important to remember that there's always more to learn.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from what others are already doing.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing: safe and reliable pipelines.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into pipeline safety, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is that pipeline safety is everyone's responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're an engineer, a technician, a manager, whatever, you have a role to play. If you see something that doesn't look right or seems off, you got to speak up.
Thanks for sharing your insights on pipeline safety and for explaining how important those human factors are, especially when it comes to preventing those black swan events.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.